LI got, because LI it still is the most, most exposed, or, iron oxide. Well, nowadays the artists are calling them mineral pigments, right? It's like this new terminology. It's not new to chemists, right? Like Mattia, the chemists at LI, always for years have referred to them as mineral pigments or, inorganics. But the industry kind of always called them iron oxides. But now I see a shift. Now we're starting to refer to them as inorganics and mineral pigments. But there is this myth that iron oxides age red. And I wanted to ask you, like, what are your thoughts and what are your comments and what's your experience with that?
I think we've got to say there are red brows out there, and orange. I've seen orange, I've seen pink, but I've not seen it with LI. I don't think it is that inorganics turn pink. Some pigment lines may turn pink, red, orange, but I've not experienced that. And I think there's other factors to do with implantation, to do with perhaps modifying too much. There was a tendency for a lot of people to use a lot of modifiers. I just haven't seen it with LI. I'm not getting red or even particular swings of warmth coming back.
Yeah, no, you know what? I never have. I can't say never. Once in a blue moon, I would get a client, back, 2 or 3 years, and maybe there's some slight warmth. I've even seen some slight ashiness, but this myth that iron oxides, go red. I think that is a big myth that a lot of us are working to dispel and bring some truth to, and re-educate on. I think LI, 100% LI got a really bad reputation years ago when, we never had no reds, no warm returns ever in 20 years. We had such a great track record, right, with LI, and then microblading hit the scene. And then I think to overcompensate for bad microblading training, because everybody became a trainer after 6 months of learning microblading. So to overcompensate for bad microblading training, a lot of trainers were telling, their students, put a bunch of orange in every single color, in every single pigment cap for every single client. And then all of a sudden, we're seeing all these orange fades and warm returns with LI, and LI took the heat for that, right? The trainers did not want to take responsibility for that. So LI, took the responsibility for that, took the hit for that, and it was really sad to see. Now we know better, and we know what caused that, and it was over modifying. So yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. It's also a technique. I think if you're in the skin too long, Katie, and when you're new and you're starting out, especially if you're new and starting out with a smaller needle, you can be in that skin too long, and which is normal. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. We all go through that. That's part of the learning process. Right? But when you're in that skin too long, if you're spending 3 or 4 hours back and forth, with a smaller needle, you're causing scar tissue. Scar tissue on fits 1, 2, 3, and even 4s is red and pink. So on top of that, the fact that they're going shallow, that pigment is falling out and leaving the skin before that red and pink scar tissue has time to heal away and go back to normal skin tone. That can take a year or 2 on some people. So I think a lot of the red and pink artists are seeing, it's not even pigment, it's scar tissue. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And I don't think that people necessarily are taking responsibility for some of the colors that are healing. I inherited a lot of local artists' work. She stopped doing it. And I kept seeing the same eyebrows, and they had a look of being purple, but when you looked close, they were sort of blue splodgy strokes and red in between. And I thought, well, she's not using different pigment between.
Right.
It's just not implanted properly. So that the overall look was purple, but there was actually red and blue from the same pigment, which will absolutely be about implantation.
Yeah. You want to hear something interesting? I was talking to one of my artists yesterday, and all my new artists that come in, I'll tattoo them with a dry needle. And I'll tattoo them like a big circle, like the size of a nickel. And I go proper depth, and then I have them tattoo right next to it. So they can get the feel of depth, right? Like they need to feel like me. And one of my artists, her name's Amy, and do you know, like that really clicked for her because there was no pigment on that needle. But do you know, over a year later, that circle that I tattooed, that she tattooed, was still pink. Still pink. And that's just her skin type. She was like, if I scratch myself and I get a scab, when the scab goes away, it can take like 6 months just for a light scratch for that pink to go away. But the tattooing area that we did, it was well over a year and it was still pink. And there was zero pigment on the needle. So it's just, it's post-traumatic scar tissue just from the needle being in the skin. So I agree with you. I think like iron oxides, mineral pigments, whatever you call them, have got a really bad reputation when it's undeserving.
Yeah, agreed. There's so many other factors go into it. And so I think that you can't always, you don't know how people are implanting it to be able to judge what those results are going to be coming back.
Yeah, 100%. So why do you think it's important, or do you think it's important for artists to know like what's in their pigments?
Absolutely. I think if you want to predict the short and long-term heal of your results, you need to know what you're putting into people's faces. And you'll see on forums all the time that people are using pigments and they have no idea whether they're inorganic, organic, highly pigmented. And then if you're using sort of, large needles and pumping pigment into people's skin, you're not going to know how that's going to turn out. So I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, 100%. Because you're right. There's so many different needles. There's the single needle, and that's a whole different technique that implants pigment very uniquely. It heals pigment very uniquely. I think pigment fades very uniquely with a single needle. Then you have like the liners, like 5 liners. A lot of people use 5 liners, and then that's very different. That affects pigments. And influences, pigment heals and fades very differently than the single. And then you have, the larger shader needles and even mags, which very uniquely in its own right affects and influences the way pigment heals and the way pigment ages. So you have those different variances. And then on top of that, throw in the faces, the skin, right? All the different skin we work on. And you'll never work on the same skin type twice the rest of your life, right? Every single lady we work on or gentleman is completely different from the next, and we'll never work on that particular skin again, ever. So.
Yeah, and we're looking at our clients and we're trying to predict from looking at their skin, using our color theory. So, how is this going to heal? And without knowing what you're using, you just can't accurately predict.
Right. So what's your, let me ask you this. So when you say, artists should know what's in their pigments, are you more toward whether it's an iron oxide, whether it's an organic, or whether it's a hybrid? Do you also feel they should know like the CI numbers and the colorants and the base of the pigment and all that stuff, whether it's REACH compliant, non-REACH compliant, because we got that to consider now? Or do you believe artists should even go that deep and know those things about their pigments?
firstly, with the reach, if you're in that area and that's the legal requirement and you're expected to work under that legal requirement, then yeah, you absolutely should know.
Yeah.
The CI numbers, I think it's useful. I've got the CI numbers all written down. My students get that. The bases, I've brought this with me. This was my, can you see this? Oh, you can't see it. It's my CI. Oh, there you go.
I'll go.
LIC.
Yeah.
Dog-eared.
I love it. I love it.
When I went to LI, I found that very, very useful because it told me the undertones of every pigment. It also went into a lot of depth about what type of fit skin it would be good on, everything that was in the base. Again, so that as you're getting to know the pigment line, you can look at your client and, you know, instead of just, oh, this will probably be all right, you can actually look and see what the base is and put your color theory into knowledge, into practice then.
Yeah, that's kind of like the Bible of LI, right? It's a lot of information. I feel today, though, I get the impression today, like a lot of young people, they don't want to take the time and read the CIC because it's a lot of written text, it's a lot of written information. It's not very visual, you know, it's not like there's no graphics, it's not very visual. It's just a lot of really written information. And a lot of times they don't want to read it. They don't want to put the time in and actually read and study it, which, I really think they ought to and invest, and really learn, no matter what line you're using, really invest the time and learn that pigment line inside and out. So you really, really fully know it and understand it, and what it can do and what it doesn't do. But yeah, I know we're working. Willow is working on and Olivia, they're working on like more of a visual graphic. It's a little like less text and more visual. So we kind of have both hand in hand because maybe some people do learn a little more visually, or they want something like a quick glance. Okay, Fitzpatrick here, this, and this. Rather than having to read a manual. Our CIC is almost like a manual, like a written manual.
Yeah, I loved it. I've got to be honest. I learned very well with written text. And so I just it would be out, I would get that out when I was learning everything and I would refer to it and it would just give me that confidence to go, this is a cool pigment. It's got a green and yellow base. It's good for this type of skin. And I would think good because it gave me that extra bit of security knowing that I was probably going for the right one.
Yeah, no, 100%. The thing that I found with the CI numbers is it's only been kind of recently that artists are looking at CI numbers, color index numbers, and interested in them. For years and years and years, our industry wasn't really interested in the CI numbers. They've always been available. If with LI anyway, the CI numbers have always been available because we've been testing, and following EU guidelines for over 25 years. Following EU guidelines and testing according to EU over in the CTU in Germany is not new to LI. We've been doing that for 25 years. So our CI numbers have always been available, but no one really asked. No one asked. No one was interested, or they didn't know to ask. Maybe that's a better approach. But now a lot of artists are interested. But what I find happening is they'll see the CI number, they'll look it up, and they'll see that it's red. And we've been getting a lot of emails like, oh my gosh, there's red in hazelnut. Is this going to turn, So, what I want, so for all our listeners, listening today, I want them to know that there is red on just about every single pigment shade in every single line. It's like you can't create shades and tones without red. And it's not that there's red in the formula or in that particular shade. It's the type of red. It's the quality of the red, right? There's different qualities of red. There's different types of red ores, right? There's red ores that are highly intensely red that will, almost like stain the skin and hang around. They're of poor quality. They're high in magnetisms. And then there's red ores, red colorants that pigment manufacturers can purchase that are much duller in intensity and are low in magnetism and don't stain the skin. And this is what I think that the industry doesn't understand. It's like shoes or anything else. You can buy, you know, a $20 pair of shoes and they're probably going to leave blisters all over your feet, you know. And, you know, in an hour, and then you can buy a high pair of quality shoes and you can wear them for a week and, you know, they're lovely. It's the same thing with colorants, Katie. You know, it's like not all red colorants are created equal. And I would like for, you know, our listeners to everybody to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as I said, I've never seen reds coming back, even in the LI pigments that I know have red in them.
Are you a big modifier person? Do you modify like your colors for most of your clients, or do you do very minimal modifying?
I do it when it's needed.
Yeah.
I do it when it's needed. And I think that just comes with time and confidence and knowing who's going to pull gray.
Yeah. Right.
Otherwise, generally, I won't modify if I don't think it's necessary. I think people over modify and they are so powerful that you've just got to be careful.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they're there because I do need them on some skins.
No, we definitely need the modifiers, you know, from time to time. I modify maybe 30% of the time. Probably 70% of the time, no, I'm not modifying either. And it's like you said, it's artists, you know, it's a big part of our training, being able to identify the skin type and classify it, whether it's going to pull cool. And if it is going to pull cool, and by pulling cool, that means adding gray to our healed results. You know, if it's going to pull cool, how cool? Like slightly, moderately, or a lot? It's like you can't just classify it as cool. What level of coolness is it, right? You know, so it kind of starts there, and you know, but people are afraid of that gray result. They're scared to death of getting gray, and they're over modifying, or they're putting modifiers in their target colors on clients that absolutely don't need it. You know, don't need it.
I think as well, if people have been taught with other pigment lines where they do say slap 20% red in this in every single, then if they move across to LI and start doing that, that's possibly where they're getting some of these warm, long heels from.
Yeah, 100%. And the modifiers are strong. They're concentrated and they're strong. Like the rule of thumb with LI is like, you know, it should never really compromise more than 5% of your total target color. You know, that's like rule of thumb. I mean, you know, and that would be on someone really super cool. That's how strong the modifiers are. I mean, you're talking pure, straight, unadulterated orange, you know, and that's it's strong. You know, even though it's it's strong and it's powerful. So, and you know, sometimes we don't even need an orange. Do you know? I mean, sometimes you just need a warm yellow on the different skin types, rather than going straight to a powerful orange. Like a warm yellow is appropriate. You know, that level of warmth is going to be appropriate. So, you know, but I'm seeing some of these, you know, oranges and reds out there on Instagram now, and I'm like, holy moly. I mean, they're making me nervous. You know, they're making me really super nervous. Some of these really, really bright red modifiers and bright red oranges that I'm seeing. It's making me a little nervous. So I'll be curious to see how, you know, those end up looking, you know, down the road.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to have to be in a position where I have to be tattooing pure orange into someone to rectify my results.
Yeah. No, 100%, you know, and, you know, sometimes we have to, for other people's, you know, if we're doing gray corrections, but yeah, your own work, no. You know, what I think all artists, right? We all want to get to that sweet spot. And that sweet spot for an artist, Katie, for me, is where our healed results, we can predict our healed results pretty accurately. And the fade, they're fading, they're healing the way we want to where we're proud, and they're fading exactly how we want to where they're proud. And of course, even with me and all amazing artists, And if you don't admit it, you're not telling the truth. All our work doesn't age and heal exactly how we want. No artist kind of reaches that level with their work because of all the variables, right? There's a lot of things we can't control. But I think your results and your aging gets a whole lot more predictable, and the off tones that we don't want to see, they become less extreme and they become minimized once you really understand technique, skin, and your pigment line.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we can't control variables. I say to my clients, if you roll pieces of paper, I can tell you what that's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sometimes skin, like you can look at skin, and think, oh, no, I mean, she's gonna tattoo great. She's gonna take color great. She's gonna heal great. She hardly bled. She just took color, and you expect a really great heal, and she's the one that healed all blotchy, And it's like, what the hell went wrong? And then on the flip side, you can have someone that that color didn't go in well. She bled, and you're predicting in your mind, oh gosh, she's gonna heal blotchy. I know I'm gonna lose a lot of color. She's gonna need a touch up. And she's the one who heals like beautiful, just beautiful. So like with our work, we're always getting thrown curveballs and unexpected things that we have to deal with and be counteractive to,
Yeah, and that's why I do think there's a space for every kind of pigment as well, because sometimes you're going to need to adapt when a client comes in and they haven't healed that great, or they have faded quicker than you wanted to.
Yeah.
You might need something that's a little bit punchier for that client.
For sure.